Welcome everyone. So today we're going to be going over kind of a Cliff Notes version of the Homebuyer Playbook. So I wrote this back during 2020. There's the image right here, and then I have the physical copy. So this is sold on Amazon. I do have a PDF version, and I will be recording the Audible momentarily. So let's just talk about some of the stuff, and I just want to jump on and basically give you kind of the Cliff Notes version. I won't be reading every chapter, but just to go over some of the highlights. So originally, this was written to provide a roadmap and a process to which someone can start on the road of real estate and accumulating wealth through real estate. I didn't realize that it's now been 18 years in the business. And I'll tell you something, as I look back, it's all the people, including myself, that I have helped along the way of real estate. I didn't realize it at the time. Just like when I bought my first condo, I bought it thinking I should buy a condo. I was sick of renting and I just wanted to get in there. And what I didn't realize was over the years, I would be accumulating equity that I could then use the equity for something else. I could sell, take the money, and go buy something else. I could buy something else like a car, a boat, pay off debt. I could buy more real estate, a bigger real estate. I could keep the equity, keep the house, use the equity somehow to buy another property, but then keep the property, rent it out, and do more things. So there was a lot of options that I didn't realize was there until later on. And actually, like that condo I sold, and I wish I didn't. Same with my next one, which I didn't. And that's why I ultimately wrote the book so that people wouldn't have make the same mistakes I did and understand all of their options. Now, one of the houses that and I say we, my wife and I got rid of, we sold, we were able to wipe out all of my financial aid debt. And I mentioned that in the book. It was a pretty ridiculous number, a six-figure number. But I was able to wipe it out, credit card, financial aid, wipe the slate clean, kind of hit the restart button, and actually qualify for more home on our next purchase because we had wiped out all that debt. So again, things that I started to learn along the way rather than saying, hey, here's a roadmap for you. Here's something that you can read right now that'll set you up. And whether you own a home right now or you're renting or still in college living in dorms and thinking, man, how can I build wealth? And a major lever is real estate. And I say lever because I'll be taking drinks throughout this. I say lever because if I take $10,000 and I buy $10,000 of an Amazon stock or a Walmart stock or a Costco or whatever it is, $10,000 of stock, that stock, that company goes up by 10%. My $10,000 goes up by 10%. That's $1,000. But if I take the same $10,000 and invest it into real estate, let's say I buy a $300,000 place and it's 3% down, so that's 9,000. So let's just round it up to 10. I need $10,000, and I apply that to the house, and then the house goes up by 10%. It's not $1,000. It's $30,000. Your $300,000 asset just made you $30,000 by going up by 10%. Now, other things like it's a real asset versus a paper stock. I can actually go up, knock on the house, knock on the door, live in it. And then over the years that you're living in the house, let's say it's 10% one year, 10% another year, 10% another year. Well, my initial stock that goes up 10% per year for 3 years would still give me $3,000. $1,000 one year, $1,000 the next year, $1,000 the next year. It's 10%. The house gives me 30, 30, 30. It's 90 grand. So your 10 almost turned into 100 in 3 years. Like that's the power of real estate. Now, look, real estate ebbs and flows. Right now, we're at a very high return on our investment. But even a normal is around 5 to 7% nationwide, versus Arizona is a little bit of an anomaly because it is still a younger place. A lot of companies moving here, high demand, and because the supply cannot be replenished enough. Even right now, as I record this, we're in a higher interest rate environment, like in the 7% range. That slowed us down, and still demand is high. So when rates do come down, which all economists say they will, that no one can just pinpoint when, but when they come down, you're going to see that demand go even higher, which will then gobble up more of the supply, which will then increase appreciation in equity position even more, that return on investment. So as we go through here, I'll tell you in the table of contents that we have here, we have a little forward just to tell you about me. Chapter 1 is credit, income, and assets, the CIA, credit, income, and assets. That's basically the dynamics that go into qualifying for a mortgage. We'll go a little deeper into assets and budgeting, something that I wish I had not been taught. My dad actually taught me about budgeting. I just didn't implement it. And if I had implemented budgeting sooner, I would be more on my way to wealth quicker and in a more established position where I would then have money to then deploy into investments. And whether that was stocks or bonds or businesses or real estate, you have to have the money to work with. And there's different ways to get it. But if you start with budgeting your own money, you'll be better positioned and poised to take advantage when those opportunities arise. So next we'll talk about credit, a deeper dive into credit. Then we'll go into loan programs, do's and don'ts, the mistakes, and the extras that you get when you work with a great lender partner and assemble a team that's working with you. And then I have a real life example of a client here that we're very proud of. We have thousands of clients that we've helped get into mortgages, thousands, almost to $1 billion in loans that I personally have helped with. And I say personally, but myself and my team has personally handled. And I just look at that as wow, that's a lot of money that people are now going to be accumulating in wealth through real estate. So let's talk about credit, income, and assets. So I'm not going to read verbatim out of the book. I'm just going to tell you when it comes to credit, credit is literally how credit companies will establish, and they give you a score, but they establish your, I don't know, just how good you are with paying people back. So you're going to borrow money and get extended credit. You're going to pay them back on time, how often, not late. And then when you do that over and over and over again, people are more apt to lend you money. It's like if you have a friend that you lend money to, and they always pay you right back. Sometimes they pay you quicker, sometimes they give you a little extra, and they keep doing that. You're going to want to keep giving them money. On the flip side, you give someone money and they're like, man, I can't really pay you back right now, but can you give me a couple more bucks? And you're like, sure, man, I'll help you out. And you give them a couple more bucks, and they're like, oh, hey, here's half back. And you're like, well, what's the rest? I'm working on it, but maybe next week and the next week. And then they start ducking your calls, and those are the people you don't want to lend to. And so you think the creditors have associated an algorithm and a scoring model to how you have been borrowing and paying back your creditors. And that can be a mix of revolving debt, which is like a credit card, installment loans, student loans, cars, secured credit cards are great. There's different types of debt in that as you are paying them back, you're going to build scores. And the longer you do it, meaning if it's only been 6 months that you've had a credit card, it's not as good as when you have 6 years of history behind you. So the longer you go with a creditor, the better as well. So it's kind of a game, and you need to know the rules of the game to know how to play the credit game. But the number one rule is to have credit that you are borrowing and to pay it back on time. Like there's the first two things you have to do. The other third one is never close a card unless there's excessive fees tied to it that you don't need. There's so many no fee cards out there. Now, if there's a fee, but you're able to get a lot of points or something that you're actually using and it dwarfs the fee, then that's okay. But most of the time, I'm going to say don't have a fee. Now, the history will go away when you close a credit card. So if you have a card that you're like, man, I'm paying like $200 a year and I don't use the points. Well, then if you're not going to buy a house in the next few months, then cancel the card, get a new card, get a zero fee card, and just start building credit from there. If you are going to buy a house or a car in the coming months, then don't kill the card yet, because that history is giving you good points. I say juice, good fuel in your credit card. And so we don't want to shut that down. Now, when we talk about income, income's income. How are you paid? W-2, salary, hourly, overtime, commission, self-employed, 1099, however you're paid, that's how we're going to structure your loan. And so if you're recently getting bonus income, we may not be able to use it. If you're recently getting overtime income, we may not be able to use it. If you have a history of those things, you're more apt to be able to use it. Longer history of the company, great. But a quick fact, you could have a graduated college last May and have just gotten a job. Like I just had a gal, she graduated nursing school. The next month she got a job offer letter and then said she was going to get paid X per hour, working a 40-hour work week. We used that to get her pre-qualified for home. She hadn't even started nor gotten a paycheck yet, and we were able to get her out house shopping. Now, by the time she closed, we had a pay stub. We were proving that she was working there, and that's it. She had over a 700 credit score because she had opened one credit card. It was a secure card for $300, and that gave her over a 720 credit score. So these are examples of just having an open conversation with us. We can figure out. Don't let maybe something you searched online or somebody that's not in the business tell you what you can and can't qualify for. Make sure you're getting with a licensed professional loan officer that knows their stuff, has a track history of helping people, knows self-employed, knows the W-2 world, knows how to work the credit game. Now, assets. Assets can be assets that you have. They can also be assets that maybe you're getting gifted from a friend or family member. So, for example, you could have your parents gift you money, grandparents gift you money for your down payment, your closing costs. You could have saved up the money. You could borrow against your 401k. If you saved up the money, great, it's your money. But we need the proof in the statements that you do have the money. And again, think about it. When the bank goes to lend, when you go to lend someone money, if they said, "Hey, I need a couple $100," you're like, "Sure," and they said, "I got like 1,000 in the bank. I just don't want to touch it right now." They're like, "Okay." Like I'm more apt to give them the money because I know they were able to save up $1,000. And worst case, if they can't give me my 200 back off what they're going to use it for, they're going to give me the 1,000 out of the 1,000 that they already have. Or, well, I have this other account. I just don't want to tap into it. I pay a penalty, but I can get it. Like, great. Then I'm more apt to lend you the money because I know you have access to it. That'd be like a 401k, an IRA, things like that. So that's where the assets come in. Okay, let's go to our next chapter, budgeting. Assets and budgeting. Now, from here forward, you want to save as much money as possible. And I say save, I should say store, because you're going to store it up until you have enough to then do something with it. Now, right now, there are short-term CDs that are at 4 or 5%. There are savings accounts, high yield savings accounts where I can put my money in, make 4 to 5%, have access to my money within 24 hours. Great places to put your money that are high yield, high interest versus normal interest rates at savings accounts are like 0.001%. So you're not really making a lot on your money. We want you to store up that money to then be able to invest it in stuff, whether it's in a Robinhood account where you buy in certain stocks or investments, or you're getting ready to then buy in a property, you're at least saving the money. So you've got a budget, and I have specific forms that you can download out of the book that you can input in. What are you spending? There are apps you can download. There's a gosh, what's the one? There's a QuickBooks app that you can download. There's a lot of tracking money apps. I don't want you to spend a lot of money on those apps because you're doing the opposite. You're spending money. We want you to, keep. There's one called Truebill that you can have. It will actually sync to your bank account securely, and then you can pull down and itemize your stuff. But you will see recurring things. You're like, man, why do I have 2 Netflix accounts? Or wow, I have a Netflix, Hulu, Prime, Apple, Disney Plus, Showtime, Cinemax. Like, this is just too much. And those $5, $7.99, $4.99, $6.99, $13.99, they add up. And all the while, the coffee, the pumpkin spice, the latte, The recurring stuff, the 2 gym memberships, like it is easy to get sucked into that game. And when it's not a lot, yet it compounds over time. And it compounds the wrong way. Like when you start saving, you're like, man, I'm gonna put $10 over here, $5 over here, $10 over there. I'm gonna round up over here, and that's going into a savings account. Like, wow, I all of a sudden have $4,000 in my account. I can now do something. I feel better about borrowing that money. I feel better about my down payment. I feel better about getting into that home. Remember, it's not just about your down payment, your closing costs. You got to move in. I got to move, pay movers. Maybe I'm buying my buddy's lunch to help me move. Once I get in there, I'm like, wow, I have an extra bedroom. I need to furnish that. I've got a kitchen that I need to put pots and pans and silverware. And we recently got a second home, a vacation home that's now a rental property and second home. And when we did so, I'm like, every time I've moved in the past, I've just moved my pots and pans and dishes and silverware. We just bought a new place. I'm like, uh-oh, I gotta furnish this whole place with like cutlery and plates and a spice, like spices and oils and things that normally you're just moving from house to house or rental to rental. Now it's like, oh, I gotta buy more stuff, or I gotta buy all new stuff. And so those are expenses that you're like, I'm happy I've been saving and budgeting. And when you can measure, like when I first did this exercise, I was like, wow, I'm going out to eat too much. It was like 4 or 5 nights a week. I trimmed it down to like 3, and we've saved a few $100s a month. Little thing. I called Verizon and said, is there a better data plan I can be on? And they said, yeah, we can save you $84 a month. I'm like, they were never going to call me to offer that. Yet when I reached out to them, or back when we were carrying credit card debt before I wiped it out with our one house, my wife would call every 6 months. She would call the credit card and say, "Do you have a better deal? I'm getting all these offers to transfer my credit cards." Now, right now, credit cards are at average 23% interest. That's crazy. I had someone the other day that negotiated down to 7. That's huge, and they had like a $20,000 bill. That's over $3,000 a year that they negotiated down, moving it to a 7% card with the same company. No transfer fees. Those are things that you can call and negotiate. That's all part of budgeting. Getting an increase in your limit but not using that increase will help you with your credit score. It helps the banks to see that you were offered a lot of money to be extended to you, but you're not using it. That's great. That's what they want to see on your credit. Good credit is going to be a reflection of you budgeting. Bad credit is a reflection of not budgeting and overspending. Okay, the next part we talk about is credit, like we're talking about now. And I'm going to show you in here, we've got some cool graphs in regards to the percentages of where things are in regards to gaming the system of your credit score. So, for example, 30% is just how much you owe. So, what's that percentage of what you owe versus what the balance is, or the credit limit? So, I owe this much. Here's the balance. What's that percentage in there? And that takes up 30% of the whole makeup of your credit. 35% is the history. 35%. So when you are thinking, oh, I'm going to cancel this card, there's rules around canceling. Like I don't want to cancel if I'm gonna buy a house anytime soon, or a car, anything credit related, because I don't want to damage my score. And the only reason I'm going to cancel it is because I have some sort of a fee or something. But I've got like 3 or 4 cards in my closet that still have the stickers because I never activated them because I'm not using them. Yet if you pull my credit, it says, oh, Greg's had a Discover card since 2002. That's a long time. That's a lot of juice. If I cut the card and call and cancel Discover, I'm out. I lose all of that history, and I will go from 800 and something down. It will keep coming down when I'm deleting cards. You can cut them up and you can not use them. You just can't cancel them with the credit bureaus. So I keep getting my new cards. I don't activate them. I don't use them. That way I don't have any credit fraud or anything like that happening. If I activate them, I run the risk of somebody using my stuff. Okay. So that's a big one in regards to the credit. Now, this whole chapter is telling you, I mean, here's the paragraph. Having had 17 credit cards myself, I can appreciate your point of canceling unused cards. 17. I had 17 credit cards. Okay, next part, loan programs. So we're going to go over in here in depth the various loan programs and products. So here's a, there's just certain banks and credit unions, retail institutions, brokerages that have their set products, and they don't even tell you about the product that they don't have. I'll give you a great example. I had a gentleman. He was out in the Southeast Valley here in Arizona. It is known as a to be close to rural area, like a rural area, like farm, things like that. And there's a specific rural loan that is 100% financing, meaning zero down. And when the client called in, his name was Dan, and I said, "Well, Dan, why are you going FHA? You could go USDA." He's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Well, it's a program. There's no money at the time. There was no mortgage insurance. Now they have an annual fee, and it's still cheaper than FHA now. But even then, there was no fee, and it's 100% financing. It was like a VA loan in a way." And he was not a veteran. And he's like, "Oh no, the bank didn't tell me about this." And I said, "That's weird, because you're in that area, you're looking in that area. Let me send you the map." He said, "Yeah, confirmed. I had him. I qualified him for it." I said, "Okay." He goes, "Hey, Greg, out of curiosity, I called my bank, and they don't offer the product. That's why they weren't telling me about it." Now, that's legal, but to me, it's immoral. It's unethical. If you're in an area and you know the products, you just didn't want to tell them about it because you weren't going to do the loan. So that happened. So what I pride myself here with our company is that we offer all the products: VA, FHA, USDA rural housing, conventional, construction, equity lines, seconds, down payment assistance. I mean, we offer 'em. And I'll tell you, like, for example, I don't do land loans, but if someone calls in for land, I say, "Hey, I have somebody for you." Or when we do seconds, there's a certain part of a second that we don't do that I will refer to a gal that I've referred to for like over a decade, and I don't get paid on it, but I would happily refer those out. Like, that's my ethical and moral stand on this topic. So when it comes to loan programs or product, you want to make sure that your lender has access to them all. And if they don't, they know if there's a better option out there, even if they're not the one that's going to be able to do your transaction. Like, that's the highest level of lending that you want to be able to get associated with, because they're the ones that you know are forever going to be taken care of. Now, in detail, I go into the do's and don'ts of certain ones. Why is one more advantageous? Like, for example, you can borrow more against your debt to income ratio on an FHA loan versus a conventional loan. So that's sometimes an advantage. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you can qualify for both, yet one may be better than the other because of the mortgage insurance or the lack of mortgage insurance or how long you're going to be in the property. So having a well-seasoned veteran that can walk you through the do's and don'ts, and I mean, probably have an example of every loan product and why I do one versus the other. And again, I get into long-term planning, like how long are you going to keep this house? If in 5 years your family looks like this, would you move? Cool. What would we do with this one? Maybe. Okay. And just basically coming up with all of the options that go into that. Okay. The do's and don'ts. Now I'm just going to flip to this because it's probably easier for me just to read these out. I mean, I put these in writing. I have a cool little video on this. Um, these are just, for example, don't quit your job, which should sound pretty rudimentary, but I had a gentleman, he was working for like CVS, and he's like, "Oh man, I just couldn't take it anymore. I quit." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't you remember me saying don't leave your job?" He said, "Yeah, I just couldn't take it anymore." I said, "Okay, well, you now need to go find a job. Let me go find out how much we qualified you for and how much you got under contract for and how much you really need to make." And I came back and I said, "Hey, you need to find a job that pays you 13.53 an hour." And so we literally went to the competitor, which I think it was CVS to Walgreens, or it was Walgreens to CVS, one of the two. And he goes, "Hey, I got a job." And I said, "Okay, man, send me over the verification." And we went over to the benefits, and they said he was making that much money. He literally, when we called to verify, the guy goes, "It was weird. We offered him like $13 an hour, and he needed 13.30." And I said, "Yeah, we're doing this loan. It has to be that money." He goes, "Never had that happen before." So again, that worked out, but I've also had it to where I say, don't get your credit pulled, don't give someone your social security number. And I had a gal ran up. It was Ann Taylor, it was Banana Republic, It was Target. And I called her and I said, hey, her name was Barbara. I said, Barbara, it's Greg. We have a problem. It looks like someone may have done identity theft. There were some purchases made at these three places. She goes, oh no, that was me, Greg. And I was like, well, remember we told you not to give your social security? Oh yeah, but it was 0% and they were giving me this and I got a free sweater and whatever. And I was like, well, now you're not going to get your house. And she's like, what? I said, yeah, you need to return the items and get me the receipt that shows you canceled them. Or you have to get me the statement that shows me what your minimum balance is so I can rerun it to see if it even works. But your ratios are super, super tight. It freaked her out. It was, I laugh about it now, but in the moment, like I'm sweating for her. I'm sweating for the real estate agents. I feel horrible that she might lose the house. Even though I said don't do these things, I'm still responsible. And so I reiterate these little things like don't rack up debt, meaning charge up your existing credit card. Like don't go get a new stuff, but don't rack up your existing one is a huge one. But also think about now your debts are higher. You've depleted your savings account. Like these are all things not to do when you're in a transaction. And what does it do on the other side? Like maybe you could do that stuff and still get approved, but how do you feel at the end of the transaction when you have less in your bank account? It's harder for the move. It's harder to fill up the stuff. You've got 2 extra bathrooms that you didn't have in your apartment, and now you need more toilet paper and more towels and more toiletries, things like that the people don't think about. So I'm always like, look, you're best to save as much as you can, don't spend, and then when we're closed and you get your keys, you can go buy stuff. But now you can be very strategic. You're not sweating your next mortgage payment. You're able to move with ease. It's just less stressful, less anxiety, less sleepless nights by doing that. So there's quite a bit on the do's and don'ts. Like, do save your money. Um, do keep paying down your debts because the stronger your credit profile, um, it's not closed until it's closed. It's not closed until it's recorded. The county says it's yours, and you get your keys. Like, until then, you want to be on your best behavior with your credit, your income, and your assets. So if you were working overtime before, continue to work overtime. If you were working a full 40 hours, continue to work a full 40 hours. Don't like, oh, Greg, but I kind of went to part time now because I know there's going to be a lot of stuff to do around the house. And it's okay because I got money in savings. No, it's not okay because the employer is basing your pre-qualification, the bank is basing your pre-qualification off of how you are employed, not off of being less employed in the future. That would not be a good sign. So do more, save more, work more hours, do more, get more bonus income, do higher in sales volume, make your paychecks go up during the pre-qual process because the bank goes, ooh, I knew that was going to be a good bet versus the other way. Okay, mistakes and extras of a great lender. So the mistakes, and I'm just going to go straight to it as well. Um, these are similar to the do's and don'ts, but I'll tell you some of the mistakes that I've seen are um, going in with a super lowball offer that the realtor didn't endorse. Meaning, you're going for that $500,000 house, and you're like, I think we should offer 450, and the agent's like, your agent, the one that represents you, says, the comps in the area are supporting about 490. We could maybe get 487-ish, but man, anything less than that's like a slap in the face. You're like, no, but let's just go in at 450, and maybe they'll beat us halfway at 475. That's how we should negotiate it. And the realtor's like, okay, I work for you, but this is my advice. I'm doing that. And you put in that offer. Meanwhile, a competitive offer comes in at 490, and they're going, well, cancel yours, I'll take that one. And then you missed the house. You missed the house. And so taking the advice of the professionals that you hire, or when we're talking, and let's say that same scenario, I had this last week, we're like, hey, Greg, we're going to offer 490 on the 500 house. I said, hey, that's great. But if you think you're going to get it at 490, what if we go in at 500 and ask for $10,000 in seller concessions? The seller's going to get the same 490, right? They sold it for 5 and they gave you 10, or they sell it at 490 and give you nothing. They get 490, and you getting the 10. If you knock 10 off the price, they're going to save like $13 a month or something, like really small amount. But if you knock 10 grand, you get to keep the 10 grand in your bank account that you're going to pay in closing costs or buy the interest rate down. And so it was a better position. And so rather than being hard headed about it, like, no, I just want to get a deal on the house. Okay, but you're going to save $13 versus I can keep $10,000 in your bank account. Like, which one sounds better? And so, me having that candid conversation with your trusted advisor, having the trusted advisor that even tells you that, meaning most bankers are going to be they don't want to lose you as a client, and so they're the order taker. Oh, okay, offer it at 490, no concessions, cool. I'll be here when you get your contract accepted. And then when they send your payment, they're like, "Hey, look, you saved $13. Congratulations!" And you're like, "Wow, that wasn't really a lot off of that. Is there another way we could have done that?" And they're like, "Well," and then they tell them. You're like, "Oh," and now it's too late now because you have a negotiated, legal, binding contract that is sitting there. Okay, so there's quite a few in here, and I'll tell you some of the things that I think of. I can sum up the greats of a great lender a couple ways. One would be that they're just great with communication. They're crystal clear, they're articulate, they're not talking over your head. Um, they bring it down to a level that you understand. They show you all your options. They've been in the business long enough that they've helped a lot of people. I'm not saying that someone being a year or two in the business isn't great, but if they haven't done a lot of deals in the 2 years, then maybe you look for other options. I've been in this for 18 years. We've done thousands, like close to 6,000 loans, close to $1 billion. We have some experience, and I think like if I had to have surgery on anything, my pinky finger or my heart, I'm asking, how many of these have you done, doc? And when they go, Greg, I do 4 a day and I've been doing this for 30 years. Okay, I feel very comfortable with that gentleman touching my heart or my pinky. Where it's, well, I just graduated medical school 2 years ago. I've been doing my residency. I've watched many doctors do this, but this will be my third one that I've done. The other two were successful, though. Like, yeah, I'm not really having confidence, and I want to accumulate a lot of wealth in real estate. And so I want to have someone who's a top notch surgeon with thousands of hours of practice that is still practicing and not resting at the, wow, I've done a lot. I'm just going to sit back and, just give you some information. No, like I'm studying guidelines daily. I study the market. I study where everything's going because I myself am in the game, right? That's another thing you want to look for. Like, do you want the person that is actually involved in it? That you have the tailor that shows up with a ripped t-shirt, jeans, or the tailor that shows up to the nines with their outfit that they're going to supply you. You're like, they wear their product. The loan officer that owns multiple homes, that has used homes to wipe out debt, that has used homes to leverage to buy more homes, that has used home to better their economic positioning, that's who I want. The realtor who's bought and sold real estate in the neighborhood you're looking at, not, yeah, I can drive 45 minutes to that area and help you out. I've never sold one over there, but I hear it's a nice part of town. Not the person I want to work with. So asking great questions to find out who is that great realtor, great lender, what's the experience, what are the reviews that I'm seeing online. No different than going to a nice restaurant. You could recommend a nice restaurant that you've been to forever, and I'm still going to go click on the reviews and look for them and go, and yes, I know there's going to be a couple bad ones in there no matter what, but when I see hundreds of good ones, I'm like, oh, I'm going to definitely go there now. It's been validated. All right, well, look, I appreciate your time today. I will link down in the comments the PDF version. If you want the real version, it is on Amazon. You can look it up by my name. There's two things that I sell on there. One is the daily playbook, which is you're writing down goals and gratitude and things like that on a very repetitive basis. And then I have the Homebuyer Playbook, all part of my Run the Play series. I am excited to work with you in the future. And remember, a conversation with me doesn't mean I have to pull your credit and look at your tax returns and all that stuff. I can, but mostly it's around conversations to see if it even makes sense for you. And I tell you, the best time to talk is now. Even if your lease is expiring in a year, you just signed a brand new lease and you can't get out of it. Still, now is a great time because we can talk about what do we need to do to get your credit as high as possible to get you into the best loan products, the best options, open up more options for you, and also for budgeting. If I start you 12 months ago in budgeting, where would you be today in your checking and savings account? If we start today, where will you be in 6 months, in 12 months in your checking and savings account, in your financial, fiscal stability? It's just going to be a different story. All right. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in. Look forward to working with you.